Alright, hi guys, welcome to my theater history final video. This is 50 facts about basically everything we've learned the second half of the semester. So we have 25 facts about the Italian Renaissance, we have 15 facts about the English Renaissance, and we have 10 facts about the Spanish Golden Age. That's how this video is going to be broken up. Hopefully it's going to be as interesting as I could make it. I'm just going reading down a bulleted list of just facts about the Renaissance period. So here we go. All right, number 1. Renaissance is Italian for rebirth, and it ran mostly from the 15th to the 16th centuries, marking the transition from the Middle Ages to the early modern period. Number 2. There were multiple Renaissances across Europe, including one in England, but the Italian Renaissance is the most famous. Number 3. The Italian Renaissance was a boom of music, art, and especially theater. Number 4. Lots of scholars of the Renaissance studied the ancient Greek and Roman plays and became inspired by them. Number 5. These plays were also put on by members of the Renaissance, and they were translated into Italian. Number 6. Critics of theater began to critique the ideas of the Greek and Roman playwrights and philosophers and people who mused on theater, such as Aristotle. Number 7. This critique of theater was known as neoclassicism, and it established some very strong guidelines or mandates for how theater should be written and produced during the Renaissance. Number 8. One of these critics was named Julius Caesar Scaliger. Number 9. Julius Caesar Scaliger believed that theater should be as close an approximation to reality as possible, and if the content and characters did not adhere to the social norms at the time, then the play would not be persuasive, and it would seem improbable. Number 10. Some of these beliefs led to plays being restricted to featuring only one location. The play had to take place over a 24-hour period, or else it wouldn't be very realistic. The critics also believed that a sense of genre was defined very narrowly, with tragic plays needing to feature royalty or nobility and having a sad ending, and comedic plays were always about the common countryside folk who always ended up having a happy ending. Number 12. This type of theater was called didactic theater. Didactic means to teach a lesson. Number 13. The neoclassical ideals did not restrict all types of theater, but applied mainly to the standard comedies and tragedies that were written during this time. Number 14. Another type of theater that was developed during the Renaissance that still survives today is called opera. Number 15. Opera was partly born out of a smaller type of a performance called an intermezzo, which was a short musical piece that was performed in between the acts of regular plays. Number 16. An intermezzo was usually based on a mythological concept and contained very heavy scenic effects, or very heavy and special for that time, factors that would later be included by operas. Number 17. Operas took these concepts and built on it, becoming one of the most highly stylized and dramatic forms of theater. Every word in opera is sung, not spoken, and the music doesn't follow a concise melody, allowing the music to convey the actor's emotions. Number 18. Opera is just one type of theater that originated in Italy during the Renaissance. Another famous type of Italian-born Renaissance theater was known as Commedia dell'arte. Commedia dell'arte was developed in Italy between 1550 and 1750, but it eventually branched out to other European countries, most famously in France. Number 20. Commedia dell'arte is different from other types of Renaissance theater in the sense that the actors were not actually reading from scripts, but were improvising scenes that were based on different generic scenarios. Number 21. There were 10 actors in a normal Commedia dell'arte troupe, and each actor played out one character for their entire time in the troupe, no matter the scenario that was being acted out. Number 22. There were 10 stock characters for a member of the troupe to play, Most characters were masked, but they moved with specific gait and specific body movements that helped the audience understand which character was being played. Number 23. These characters were as follows: Magnifico, the leader who walks with his head high and his chest out; Zani, Magnifico's servant who is always curious and aloof and therefore walks with his feet and his head up; Pantalone, the old man, miser, smart character who always walks with a hunch in his back; the doctor, an arrogant man of learning who thinks he knows everything but learns nothing. He walks with his belly protruding out. Brighella, the sly servant who walks with closed hips; the Harlequin, the Brighella's happy-go-lucky counterpart who walks with open hips. They're usually a duo. There's Columbina, the smart and sassy servant girl who does not wear a mask and does not have a specific body movement. The first actor/actress. They are members of Magnifico's court, and they're often seen as the Shakespearean lovers of these types of scenarios. And finally, there is the captain, a man with immense loads of swagger who will do anything to avoid a confrontation. He moves with his knees. Number 24. In the 20th century, the character of the witch was added, who represents the countryside and supernatural elements, and as such moves in a figure 8 pattern. Many of these elements of Commedia dell'arte were used to inspire a lot of modern film tropes, such as the evolution of stock characters, the repetition of physical comedy beats seen in acts like Laurel and Hardy and the Three Stooges, and the continued use of groups and shows based around improvised scenarios. So there you have 25 facts about the Italian Renaissance, and now it's time for 15 facts about the English Renaissance. Number 1. Italy was not the only country to have a Renaissance, and England had one of its own as well, though the English Renaissance got off to a much later start. Number 2. The English Renaissance differed from the Italian Renaissance in the sense that it was mostly based around literature and music instead of the visual arts. Number 3. The English Renaissance is generally considered to have started in the mid-15th century with the end of the War of the Roses at the Battle of Bosworth Field, starting the Tudor dynasty. Number 4. The Tudor dynasty is the name given to the reign of King Henry VIII and the subsequent reign of his children, Edward IV, Mary I, and Elizabeth I. Number 5. During his reign, King Henry VIII also established the Church of England, separating from the Catholic Church so he could divorce his wife, though this came more into play later during the reign of his daughter Elizabeth. Number 6. Queen Elizabeth I was a fan of theater, and it was during her reign that the English Renaissance was considered to have reached its peak. Number 7. Elizabeth dismissed the ways of the older English plays from the Middle Ages, those being religious-based morality or cycle plays that were performed by traveling acting troupes or just in churches. Number 8. Elizabeth instead called for a need for new literature work to be done, and established permanent acting troupes that were in service of nobility, therefore bringing the job of the actor a lot closer to what it is today. Number 9. Elizabeth's reign is also credited with the birth of a permanent network of theaters for these new acting troupes to perform in, some public and some private, but one of the first times these buildings were dedicated solely to the purpose of putting on shows. Some of these Elizabethan theaters still survive today, such as Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. Number 10. Early Elizabethan drama gave birth to a lot of the classic theater tropes that we think of when thinking of writers such as Shakespeare, such as the soliloquy, a more episodic form, and the use of blank verse. 11. Blank verse is where the text is spoken in a specific rhythm, but does not necessarily rhyme. A lot of blank verse was usually written in iambic pentameter, where each line is comprised of 10 syllables with 5 pairs of stressed and unstressed syllables known as iambs. Iambic pentameter is usually associated with William Shakespeare, but was originally credited to Christopher Marlowe, another famous English playwright. Number 12. Marlowe is interesting in himself, as some believe he inspired Shakespeare with his work, while others wonder if he would have left a stronger legacy than Shakespeare if not for his untimely death as a rumored secret agent. Several of Marlowe's works survive today, one of the most popular being the play Dr. Faustus. Number 13. Shakespeare was a contrast to Marlowe in the fact that he was not university educated like Marlowe was, yet he is still considered to be one of the greatest English writers to have ever lived. Number 14. The acting style in Elizabethan theaters was quite a contrast from the neoclassical ideas of the Italians. The English were not big fans of realism, and their plays tended to take place on a more epic scale, not being bound by the restrictions of unity of one place, time, or plot. Number 15. This style came from the more overarching emphasis on literature during the English Renaissance, as there was more focus on the content of the story. And there's 15 facts about the English Renaissance, and now we're moving on to 10 facts about the Spanish Golden Age. Number 1. One of the other major early European powers, Spain, was experiencing its own golden age while the English and the Italians were experiencing their Renaissance periods. This again was in the mid to late 15th and 16th centuries. Number 2. Spain was a country that was very, very Catholic dominated after kicking out the Islamic Moors, so unlike the Italians and the English, the Spanish Golden Age continued to hold a much tighter grip on its religious dramas before eventually relaxing to more secular plays. Number 3. These religious plays were called autos sacramentales and were a development of medieval morality plays, or plays that personified abstract concepts in order to teach a lesson about having a good character. Number 4. The autos sacramentales were performed for Spanish religious festivals, and all were pretty much written by Pedro Calderón de la Barca. They expanded on morality plays by including supernatural and human characters, not just the personified allegories. Number 5. The autos were originally financed by the private trade guilds until the cities took over and hired professional acting troupes to perform the plays. Number 6. Eventually, the autos began to fade away as they started to include less and less religious elements, which eventually led to them being prohibited. Number 7. With the loss of religious-inspired autos sacramentales, the former religious playwrights began to turn to more secular or non-religious dramas. Number 8. The most prevalent secular drama in Spain were the comedias nuevas, later shortened to just comedias. These plays were more akin to the melodramas we have now, and were very, very far away from those Italian neoclassical ideas, with a mixing of tragedy and comedy, usually with themes of honor and romance behind them. These plays were also written to please the audience and not educate them on a moral lesson. Number 9. There were many types of these comedias, such as the capa y espada, or cape and sword, which was an early introduction to the swashbuckler-style character, a witty, heroic, skilled, and chivalrous main character. Number 10. The Spanish also eventually had their own dedicated theater spaces to house productions, though one of the biggest differences was that these spaces were funded and kept running by the city government and charities, unlike the Elizabethan theaters, which were managed and funded by the acting troupes themselves. Alright, and there you have 50 facts about everything we've learned the second half of this semester. You got 25 for the Italians, 15 for the English, and 10 for the Spanish. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this video was interesting to watch. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Enjoy your break.